So I was born January 25th, 1999 to two, incredible parents. I have an incredibly loving, godly family. My dad, is a pastor. My mom is a nurse, and I was never in need. I guess I just struggled as a kid. For the first 4 years of my life or so, I just didn't talk. I struggled in school because of it. We later learned that I'm autistic. I'm on the autism spectrum. And so that, answered that question. But for me, it didn't really answer anything, because I always had this feeling that there was something different. I grew up in the church. I grew up in a really solid youth group. My dad was the pastor of the church. But ever since I was a kid, there was just this feeling I had inside of me that I wasn't good enough. There were three kind of core identity lies that shaped my life. One, you're worthless. Two, you're always going to be alone. And three, you're not worth loving. And it's this thing of like, God tells me he loves me, and people tell me they love me. My parents, I didn't believe that it was true. I believed that I was worthless, whether it was the way my personality or my receding hairline or my teeth or anything about my physical image or my lack of success in anything. I just didn't believe that I was loved by God. I didn't believe he would love me, and I didn't believe anybody else would actually love me. So I was constantly striving in all of these different ways to succeed and to be the best and to be seen and to be heard. So when I was around 12 years old, I got exposed to pornography for the first time. And it ruined my life. Over the course of the years, it became this really bad habit that I just kind of had this dark secret that I had in the back of my life, the corner of my life that I didn't want anyone to know about. But man, it just caused so much shame inside of me, so much confusion. Obviously, I was young, and being young, it altered the chemistry, the malleability in my brain. And what it did was those feelings of worthlessness that I had, that I wasn't worth loving, that I was always going to be alone, it magnified them and it made them bigger. And pornography addiction, really any kind of sexual addiction, teaches you to isolate because there's so much shame around you. We ended up moving to Texas, and it was just a very difficult move. We got kind of taken away from everything and everyone we ever knew, and I had grown increasingly mentally unstable. And so the porn addiction went from being a bad habit to a full-blown addiction. I used it to cope with everything in my life, to numb every emotion, happy, sad, depressed, anxious, lonely. When I was feeling anything, I went to it. And the more that I went to it, the more magnified the identity lies came. You're worthless. You're always going to be alone. You're not worth loving. Because if you believe that you're worthless, that you're always going to be alone, and you're not worth loving, then you're going to believe that pornography is as good as you're going to get. I actually have a line that I wrote in one of my songs. I take intimacy with a screen, believing that I'm not good enough to be loved by an actual human being. And that was the heart of my pornography addiction, is I didn't believe I was good enough to be loved by another person. I didn't believe I was good enough to be loved by a woman, that there's no woman in their right mind who would love me for who I am. And it just kept me going back to porn, and I became dependent on it. In middle school is when I really kind of started struggling outwardly. It's like the stuff that was inside of me started like coming out, and I think it was because, puberty and all that fun stuff, and also the social element, which I already struggled with, became more heightened, and plus I had just been exposed to pornography, and so I was just messed up in my head. Everything was confusing, everything was really hard, and so it was around the 7th grade, I think I started self-harming for the first time, started having suicidal thoughts, and I didn't understand it. All I know was I wasn't okay, and I didn't know how to communicate that. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't even know what it was, you know what I mean? And so around the 8th grade, it became more heightened, and I was at a church event. I think it was a children's camp that I was helping out with, and I was just very overwhelmed, and that's when I attempted suicide for the first time. And I ended up going to this mental hospital, and I was there for a few days, and it was all just very confusing. I had started seeing therapists and psychiatrists for the first time, started getting on medication, started taking all this different medication, and I was like, what in the world is going on? It just didn't make any sense to me. I got out of there. I did okay for a while, but my heart didn't change. And if your heart changes, your behavior isn't going to change. And so I ended up struggling again freshman year of high school, and I went to another mental hospital, and after another suicide attempt, and I got on all these different medications that just screwed me up so bad, and so it became this cycle of I was in and out of seeing therapists, in and out of seeing these different psychiatrists on all these different kinds of medications, and none of it helped me. None of it had any lasting impact. I ended up going to this 37-day psychiatric facility, and 2 weeks into that, COVID-19 hits. And so it's like you're trying to get your life together and the whole world is falling apart around you. And so I left there, and I go right back to everything, all the old behaviors, and I keep getting worse. And so my dad actually gave me this card at one point. Says, I have depression and I'm autistic. Call my dad in case of an ER. And then on the back of it, it has my dad's phone number, which I'm going to cover up. And he gave me this when I was 21 years old and told me to keep it with me at all times because I was so unstable that they didn't know what would happen if I went out in public. And at this point, I was suicidal every day. I was having mental breakdowns every single day. I had been through 11 therapists. I'd been through 8 psychiatrists, 4 or 5 different psychiatric facilities, and I just kept getting worse. And I finally got to this place where God brought me to the end of myself. And I said, you know what? I don't need any more addictions. I don't need any more relationships striving. I don't need any more medications or doctors or therapists. I just need Jesus Christ to change my heart. And I really surrendered my life to Christ for the first time at that point in 2020. My dad, he'd kind of been looking into faith-based places that could kind of help out for a while. And for about 2 years, he'd been bringing up this place to me called Trinity Life Ministry, and I was never up for it, but I finally got to this place where I was willing to do anything. I wanted to be free. I didn't want to keep feeling the way that I was feeling, and I knew I needed help. And so we had met Phil Gabriel, who is the executive director of Trinity, and did a phone call interview with him, and ended up getting accepted into the program. And they had sent me man, this list of like rules and regulations and the outline of what the year at Trinity was going to look like. And I remember being like, I can't do this. I can't do this. There is no way that I will be able to do this. And I remember going to bed that night just feeling defeated, feeling discouraged, just feeling like there wasn't hope for me. The next morning I woke up and it was so clear, and I just remember it so vividly. And God was speaking to me, and he was speaking that passage. It's in 3 of the Gospels where Jesus says, there is no one who is given up house or brother or sister or mother or father or children for my sake and for the sake of the gospel who will not fail to receive 100-fold in this life and in the life to come. And it was so clear, you know, and I went downstairs and I said, I'm going to Trinity. You know, I had this sense that God wanted me there, that he was going to take care of me. I went to Trinity, and I was there for a year and a half. I got there when I was 21 years old, and I didn't know how to be a human being. I didn't really know how to be a human being, much less a man. I ended up commissioning out of Trinity and came to this place called CTP, Community Transformation Partners, which is basically like a transition house for guys that have graduated or commissioned, however you want to call it, out of a faith-based program. And it just provides continued accountability and support. So I've been here for the past 3 years or so, and it's been just an amazing place to be. So now I get to work at this job where I love. You know, it's a wellness center for elderly people. You know, I love it there. I love the residents. I love my coworkers. It's been an amazing thing. I guess what I'll say is I'm still very much in the process. Still very much, right? Like, I don't want to act like I'm up here because I'm on the other side of whatever. It's like, no, I'm still receiving counseling for just kind of unresolved wounds and pain in my heart. I still have to grow in my understanding of who I am. I still have to replace old lies that I've believed all my life. And so it's taken a while. It's been a process. But I mean, the more I've let God's people in, the more healing that I found. If you're in a similar place where I was, if you are feeling lost, if you feel dirty, unclean, if you found yourself in the same destructive cycles and just can't seem to get a way out no matter how hard you try, if you've tried all the doctors and the therapists and in and out of all the relationships, if you struggle with addiction in any way, whether that be porn or alcohol or drugs or food, social media, anything that you depend on to kind of numb out whatever's going in your life, if you have overwhelming pain that you don't understand, if you feel misunderstood, the answer is Jesus. You know, the support here is incredible. We need something, we get it. It's provided for us. Obviously, we're around other guys who are, you know, coming out of a life of addiction and out of, you know, a year or so at Trinity, and now we're in the real world. And, you know, that's been big for me because I've never been able to live independently, and I never thought I'd be able to live independently. But by the grace of God, you know, here I am 3 or so years into it, and it's been a process. You know, it's been very up and down, a lot of wins, a lot of losses, a lot of growth, you know. Basically been learning how to be a man, you know, be a human being, you know, manage budget and finances, you know, learn how to pay bills and time management and showing up to work on time, showing up to church on time, and kind of stuff that's just basic life stuff that I've always really struggled with, that I've just been able to grow in by the grace of God.